So today we're going to talk about embracing money. It's John Cottrell here from 𝐸𝐵reakthroughleadership.co.uk. Yeah, embracing money. A lot of polarized views about money, root of all evil and all that kind of stuff. But what I want to talk about today is a few slightly different things. And what I've noticed in my field, in coaching, and belonging to a group of fairly high performing people, seeing how things change for them as well over time, and realizing that one of the things people battle with is the fact that their money values lag their success. And it's a really important point. So what I mean by that is when you don't have money, you pay attention to every penny, and sort of not surprisingly, you tend to be more penny wise and perhaps pound foolish. But the problem is, as your wealth increases and you still carefully count all the pennies, what actually happens is you're still making decisions based on a cost and time basis rather than understanding properly the value of the opportunity. So it's said that wealthy people spend money to save time, and poor people spend time in order to save money. So obviously, if you're taking a poor person's viewpoint into a, let's call it a money rich or a money surplus situation, chances are you're going to be making a decision that's not really optimal for the situation that you're in. I've worked with business and on businesses for well over 30 years now, and I've never known a business that's been able to save its way to growth. You know, you can by all means cut unnecessary costs, but too often this is done bluntly, and you end up sort of cutting the meat, as it were, as well as the fat. And at the same time, you make people fearful, so they don't reach for things, they don't risk things, and because they don't risk things, they don't find opportunities, and you end up in an organisation which is logically justified for how well it's run, because they've taken care of cost, but no one's actually thought about the fact, why isn't it growing? And it isn't growing because it's got a penny wise, pound foolish culture. So here's a classic example of a values lag in money values. That's sort of on the big scale. On a smaller scale, where you've got the so-called solopreneurs, somebody starts off self-employed, and they never actually fulfill their potential because they're too worried about the costs of things and they don't really understand the value. So if that's you, have a think about the value of the opportunity. And the first obstacle you get to is that of having to take on another person. Of course, if you're worried predominantly about the cost of that person, you'll never take that person on, and therefore you'll never benefit from their labour. They'll never benefit from having a job with you, and you won't grow your business. So just an example of how some people's money values lag. It's interesting how many people have an emotional relationship with money. One of the exercises I've done myself in the past and with clients is to consider money as your friend. Literally have a chair next to you and imagine that money is sitting in that chair. What would you say to money about your friendship during your life to date? What would you say if money was your friend? How have you been a friend to money? Have you been a good friend? Have you been a faithful friend? Have you been an unfaithful or a fickle friend? Or have you actually not been a friend at all? Have you treated money with disdain? And then you do that, your so-called partner will make notes for you so that you capture this stream of consciousness, and then you go and sit in the money chair and you imagine that you're being money now. Money is the friend, and money is talking to you about how you are as a friend to money. And so you're reversing your position, it giving you a completely different perspective on the same problem. And then you repeat the exercise. And it's absolutely amazing what comes out when people do this. And very cathartic experience for a lot of people. And it can unblock some quite interesting blockages. Story may help doing that with a young entrepreneur, very successful young man, but big hang-ups around money, because despite his mother working very hard throughout her life, she never had any money. And it was interesting the degree of anger, frustration, guilt, all kinds of emotions he had around money because of the experience of his mother. And then being able to resolve that and understand by having a healthy attitude himself, he would be able to take care of his mother and make sure that she was provided for in her old age, and therefore resolving, a pretty significant problem. So another problem with money is a lot of people don't understand it. They don't understand numbers. It's said a lot of people start their own business because they could never get a job. And sort of the funny side of that aside is that therefore people tend to run away from money. They never actually confront issues. And if I think about the clients I've worked with, some of them in quite big businesses where they've never properly costed a contract, for example, it's all done on the seat of the pants. They don't really understand their own financial numbers in terms of, are they making a gross profit, and is their gross profit big enough to give them a net profit when the overheads are paid, and all those kinds of things. So it's really important to be fluent in your own numbers, in your own business, so that you can make informed decisions. With one client, we realised that the owner had bought way too much in terms of equipment and tools for that business. Probably a little bit of ego in play there, wanting to have nice shiny objects. But then there were the financial costs of carrying that equipment and it not being used. So by liquidating those assets, by selling that equipment, putting that money back on the balance sheet and not having the cash drain from payment plans and hire purchase, fast forward 6 to 12 months and that business is in a much better position financially, way more than the client had envisaged, because he hasn't yet got the number fluency to see how something that appears to be small compounds to something big over time. And it really is that simple. Our brains are not good at doing compound. We can do linear, 1 plus 1 equals 2, but we can't very easily do 1 plus 1 equals 3. And money acts with that compounding effect, not paying that interest, not doing those repayments, the penalty of not having that cash but having an overdraft. All of these things were holding that business back, but when you sell that equipment, put that money back and stop the expenses going out, suddenly the benefit of that compounding over time makes a big difference to the financial results of that business. Somebody similar had come to me with a challenge, successful in their own right, technically in their field, but not having the profit to show for it. And what we realised at the heart of it was a desire to impress other people. And when this person was able to release that and focus on looking after themselves and the family and the team and the business, they suddenly made much, much better decisions, and actually over the course of 12 months ended up 10 timesing their profit because they had a different attitude towards money. So this stuff can have absolutely huge, huge impact. Security of the team, security of the business premises, and obviously the lifestyle of the owner and family. So when I'm starting out on the money journey with clients, one of the first things I get people to do is to work out their break-even points. So the first break-even point is your family break-even point. And this is looking at all the standing orders and direct debits that go out of your bank account every single month, including your food, if you can do that on that way as well, such that at the end of the month you've spent enough money to survive. You've all survived, but you haven't gone on holiday or bought new clothes or new car or new this or new that. You've just survived. And that's the family break-even point. So we have to bring in at least as much money as that after tax to survive. So that's point number one, and most people don't know what that is. So it would be useful to know that numeric, that money number. The second break-even point is almost your lifestyle break-even point. So if you think about holidays, the car needs to be replaced at some point. Kids need school uniforms. All the stuff that makes for life, and if we weren't in lockdown, maybe going out to restaurants, cinema, those kinds of things, it all costs money. So against the budget that you like to spend in a month, what does that number come out to? Now, if you happen to be a business owner, obviously you need to make sure that your business is paying into your family, at least your family break-even point, in order to survive. And then the next level, what's the business's break-even point that it can pay its own bills? So if you stack these up, if you're in business, the first one is your business break-even point, so you're making enough revenue that all the costs are covered, but of course you haven't paid yourself yet, but you're not going bust, but you haven't paid yourself. The second level, where you're paying enough to meet your family break-even point. The third level is where you've got a lifestyle break-even point. I'd say the next level that is thinking about what profit targets you want to hit to properly grow the business, other than just take care of yourself and your family. And when I talk to people about business, most of them haven't worked these numbers out. They sort of got an intuitive feel, but they actually can't tell me the number. Of course, when you know the number, you can focus much more clearly on what you want and start to make a difference and see the impact of your financial decisions on the financial health of your business. The last point I want to make about money, I picked this up from a guy called Keith Cunningham, and I think Keith Cunningham was the rich dad in Rich Dad Poor Dad. And Keith talks about pimping your business, pimping your life. And he's a really simple example. So imagine that you need a new laptop. You could be a Mac fan or a Windows fan, doesn't matter which, but you need a new one. And you've got your eye on that nice shiny object. And then Keith pipes up, he says, yeah, okay, you're looking at that nice shiny laptop. That's, it's £2,500. It's the all singing, all dancing, ultra fast, ultra light, fantastic thing. He says, but a basic computer would only cost you 250 quid. It's 1/10 of the price of the super duper one. So he said, tell me how the expensive one's going to make you 10 times as much money. And of course it isn't, is it? It's just our ego being fooled into going for something more than what we need. And if you think about how many areas in your life you might do that, and I'm not saying go for the absolute cheapest every time. Keith said go for, what works. So if you know that the cheap one will break down within a few months and you need to buy another one, then obviously buying one that costs twice as much but lasts twice as long is going to be a better economy, right? Because you have less disruption. But generally speaking, we tend to be too free in going for, quote, what we want rather than actually what we need and what would do. And then that money we save, we can reinvest to make our business stronger. So I hope you've learned something from this one. If you like it, give us a like below, give us a follow, and if you need some assistance on some of this stuff, do get in touch. Thanks very much.